Be kind, because you never know what people are dealing with behind closed doors. Now, I've said that hundreds of times and I've written about it loads of times, but there was a time when I found myself on the other side of those words, that it took my understanding of them and my appreciation of those words to a whole new level. See, I lost my dad a couple of years ago. He'd had a brain tumour, and I would often drive my dad and my mum to my dad's radiotherapy appointments. It was like 150 kilometres round trip. I'd drive to their house, pick them up, and then go to the hospital and back. And it was very important to my dad that we got there super early. So I'm talking like 30, 40 minutes early, sometimes an hour early. It was very important to my dad. Otherwise he would feel anxious, understandably. But there was one, so I always made sure that I got there super early for that reason. But there was one morning I was running a wee bit late. You know what it's like. Life happens, stuff gets in the way. And I was on the road going there. We'd still be early, 15 minutes early or so, but not early enough for my dad. And I knew that my dad would be feeling anxious or stressed. Maybe my mum and dad probably would be down at the car park, pacing up and down, wondering where I was. And I was annoyed at myself for having let things get in the way, and I was feeling hurt and worried about the prognosis and all the different things that swim around in your mind at these really worrying times. And I was so in my head that when I got to the village my mum and dad live in, and I pulled off the road onto a wee mini roundabout, and I wasn't fully paying attention. And there was another car on the road, on the roundabout at the time, and we both just rammed our feet in the brakes and screeched to a halt, and we missed each other by a couple of centimetres. Luckily, there was no accident. But if there had been a crash, it would have absolutely been my fault entirely. But luckily there wasn't. Now, in that moment, what I expected was a loud honk of the horn. People do that. They keep their hand on the horn for a few seconds later, just longer, just to teach you a lesson. And I expected that, and I expected maybe a couple of swear words, mouthful of expletives, maybe even a couple of obscene gestures. That's sort of what I expected, because that's so normal on the roads these days. But instead, the gentleman looked at me and his face softened and he smiled. And he put his hand up and he said, "It's okay. On you go, it's okay." And that just knocked me out of myself. I was totally flabbergasted, confused. I went, okay, well, thank you. And I drove around about 100 yards along the road, and then I pulled over and I burst into tears. And I was just so overwhelmed. I think the experience of kindness was a bit of a release. It was like a release valve, and all the tears, the worry about my dad and the whole situation, everything came to the surface. And here's the thing. I don't think I could have coped if he had been really unkind, if he had honked his horn really loud, if he had swore at me or anything like that. I don't think I could have coped. Because despite the happy, cheerful face I presented to the world through my social media videos and the talks that I did and all the other ways that go along with being an author and a speaker, I was fragile, very, very fragile on the inside. Because my dad was a very private man. And outside of a very small circle of family and friends, no one knew what my dad was going through. No one, therefore, I certainly didn't tell anyone, so no one knew what I was going through either. So despite the happy, cheerful face I presented to the world, I was really fragile and struggling on the inside. So when that gentleman was kind, it was just what I needed in that day, because I couldn't have coped otherwise. And I really deeply understood the meaning of those words, be kind, because you never know what someone is dealing with behind closed doors or has dealt with that's got them to the way they're behaving or presenting right now. So for the exercise today, if you find yourself at all, and you might not, but if you do find yourself today judging anyone's behaviour negatively or judging anyone in any way, just see if you can reach for that thought and reflect on that thought, that you never know what someone is dealing with behind closed doors or has dealt with that's brought them to this point. Now, it might not change a situation, but it might change how you feel about it, and it might change how you feel about a person, and it might also mean that it changes how you respond, rather than, depending on the situation, of course, rather than reacting From a defensive position, for example, you might find yourself acting from a more positive, empowered space because you have a better understanding or a better appreciation for things. So best you can. And if you don't find yourself in that kind of situation today where you're judging someone, then just reflect on the meaning of what I've said today. So that's it. That's all for today. See how you got on, and I'll see you tomorrow.